In our last update, we gave you one support level on Bitcoin that it had to hold, or else I personally expected a much bigger drop and a break of $100,000. However, if we were able to see a bounce and the reclaim of the lows at $111,600, then I wanted to open a long position on this sign of strength to see a move higher in the charts. And if we look at what happened, well, that's exactly what happened. This support level ended up offering a very big bounce. You got the reclaim of the lows again at 111.6. You even got the retest perfectly and then saw a move much higher. So as usual, before I dive into today's price action, let me quickly recap what I personally did. So if you remember in my last update, as I was personally leaning a bit more bearish, I was holding on to this short position from much higher, but I had put my stop loss in profits at $112,300. Because if I got stopped out, this was above 111.6, this would have been a sign of strength and I could then look for very safe long positions. Now on Sunday as well, I did realize that when we saw this big move up, we had the potential to form a runaway gap and see a push much higher this week. Now, what's a runaway gap? For those of you who don't know, it's very simple. If you go over to the CME chart, it's when you form a gap and completely leave it behind. So exactly as happened right there. And as you can see, we did form a runaway gap. We completely left it behind and ended up moving much higher. So if you go over to the Discord, very quickly, we got the move up. I got stopped out the rest of my short position, still in very nice profits, and I was able to catch a long right at the lows of the day. And then I was just waiting for higher prices, got the very nice move up, and this morning I did implement a take profit one on this long position. So with that said, back to the charts, what can you expect next? Can you still expect higher prices, or is it time to expect a big reversal? So as usual, let's look at the imbalances. On the daily, we don't have any imbalance. On the 12-hour, we do have an imbalance. So if you want to expect higher prices, what you would do is take the midpoint of this candle, which comes in at 113.2. So let's take this level. 113.2, so right there. If we go on the 4-hour, let's say if we have any confluence, you can also take the midpoint of this candle, which also comes in around $113,000. So we will mark out this level. Let's see if we have any confluence on the 1-hour. We do have an open, so that's very nice. And on the 30 minutes, we do also have an open. So this area to the downside today, between 113.2 and 112.9, will be a very important area to hold in my opinion. So if you're not in a long position, of course you can look for longs if you drop into it and you see a reaction. Now before we dive into the scenarios, let's outline the level to the upside. This one is still the same, which is a 12-hour imbalance on Bybit, but also a daily imbalance on Binance. So if you go over to Bybit, it will be the open of this daily candle. Now this time, as this will be a very important resistance in my opinion, before we see much higher prices, what I want to do is mark out an area between our level and the point of control, which comes in just above. So I will take the point of control, which would be the open of this candle to this candle. And this gives you an area above from $115,600 to $115,200. So with that said, what we could look for today, in my opinion, is of course personally, I am still expecting higher prices, mainly because I want to see at least the fill of this 12-hour imbalance. So that's the main reason why I'm expecting higher prices. So going back on the lower time frames, if we can get the drop into the support and we get a reaction, then you can open a long position to see that bounce towards, once again, $115,000. And at this point, if you get a reaction up there, then personally, I will be interested in short positions to see a potential reversal to the downside and of course to hedge my long position from down there. Now on the other hand, if you break above this resistance, then personally I would expect much higher prices and a move towards at least $118,200. Okay. To the downside, the last scenario would be that of course if you lose the support, which personally I don't expect and would not like at all, then you would expect the fill of the 4-hour imbalance, so pretty much to tap this order block, which could of course also be a support, but in my view, losing the support would be a big sign of weakness. And if we get this, then of course I will film a new update tomorrow. So with that said, that was mainly it for this update. A quick recap, it's extremely simple. We have one very important support below us and one very important resistance above us. What I would like to see is a drop into this support and then see a bounce to the upside to reach that resistance above around $115,000. And at this point, I can wait for the reactions to see, do I hedge my long position by opening a short, or if we break above, then of course no short position, and I would expect much higher prices. However, today, if you break below that support, then of course expect price to tap this order block, but at this point I would be very cautious on the long positions because that would be a big sign of weakness. So as usual, if you guys enjoyed this update, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.